Oh, hey, sorry, I didn't see you there. My name is Joe, and I have a bit of a gaming dilemma.
I want to play Pokemon Yellow, which was released on the Game Boy Color. The only way for me to legally play it is to buy a copy of the game and a Game Boy Color from eBay, with the hope that I don't get ripped off or lose a kidney in the process. So with that in mind, do I A. Get a job, work until I can afford it and put my kidneys at risk? B. Join a gang and rob a bank? Or C. Download the emulator and ROM from the safety of the internet while hiding under my bed, not really hurting anyone in the process?
That is correct. It can, however, be difficult to find the right gang to join, or to find a bank that is willing to be robbed, and in some places, it might even be a crime. So, which other choice do I go with?
The gaming landscape constantly changes and evolves. We sometimes get new, bigger and better games that push the capabilities of what is possible. Even with all the constant changes happening, one thing seems to always be constant in the gaming world, and that is piracy. Piracy is a crime, and if you do it,
straight to jail.
Even though it might sound like I do, I by no means encourage piracy and will under no circumstances, even if there's a fire, tell you to illegally acquire a copy of a game. Just to make sure that I make myself crystal clear and that the Ninja gaming lawyers understand what I'm saying, I'm going to phrase it differently. You should never, ever, ever, ever support pirates or illegally download anything, whether it be Linux, a Jay-Z album, a house, or even a game.
You'll probably die.
So with all of that out of the way, let's look at why piracy is our best friend. Greedy industries have struggled with piracy since before the days of Blackbeard and his gang. Basically, if people want something bad enough, they will go to great lengths to acquire what they desire. That is part of the reason why the prison industry exists,
with the other part being money.
Back when I was a kid, I didn't have any fancy consoles of my own. My family had a Famicom clone, and whether we liked it or not, that's what we had to enjoy. We didn't even have any original cartridges, and instead had some bootleg cartridges with 32 games in one. We didn't give a crap. Chip and Dale was fun, Mario was badass, and there were even a bunch of other memorably bad games for when we got fed up with the first two mentioned games.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
Back then, I didn't even know that there could be something like a pirated game. We had a bunch of things to play, and ignorance was bliss. Games were cool, but I was never really bothered by it that much. We had what we had, and I was okay with that. Till I discovered a thing called Pokemon on the Game Boy Color. I didn't own a Game Boy at the time, and there was no way that my parents would spend that much on a gaming console and something Pokemon related. The point is that the only way I was able to play Pokemon Blue back then was through an emulator and ROM that was being passed around on a floppy disk.
Let the record show that since then I've deleted the file, burned the floppy disk, and I no longer poison the city's water supply.
My actions almost caused Nintendo to shut down back then due to the loss of a sale, but luckily they managed to pull through somehow. Thinking back, it might have been wrong, but due to that experience as a kid, I have grown to love the Pokemon franchise and now buy all the games, even if some of them are bad.
Like this one.
I've even paid to use the Pokebank and Pokemon Home a few times, so much in fact that they have probably made up the loss I caused them back then.
I'm doing my part to save the gaming industry.
As time passed and I started earning a living, gaming-related items became more accessible. Instead of pirating Pokemon, I could just get it and play it on my Game Boy Advance, and then my DS, and then later on again, my 3DS. Throughout the years, I would end up spending way too much money on games, some of which I will probably never even get around to playing. Things were good, and there was no need for piracy. But then something changed.
Critical games!
Moving into a digital era, more and more games got released digitally, with fewer and fewer physical releases happening. This made finding the game I wanted to play more accessible, as I no longer had to go hunting around gaming stores in search of a copy of what I wanted. I could instead buy it on a digital store, go make a snack while it downloads, and gain a bunch of weight in the process. Smaller games especially benefited from it, as it just makes more sense to release them digitally for cheaper than to have to make physical copies and having to ship them out. Things were good, but just like with everything else in life, time can be cruel. With the aging of hardware, some of the older digital storefronts have ended up closing due to not being used as much, or even newer platforms being able to benefit more from those resources. Due to this, a lot of digital games that were once easily accessible for everyone has now become unobtainable, and the world is worse off because of it. It happened to the Wii Shop, the PSP Store, Google Stadia, the 3DS eShop, and the Wii U eShop.
And it can even happen to you.
Some older consoles such as the Game Boy never even had digital storefronts, and the only way to obtain some of the games these days is to find a physical copy of a game that has been marked up high enough for you to develop heart problems. When you get over the medical issues and make the purchase, which does not benefit the developer or publisher in any way, you also need to hope that the game isn't just a bootleg copy, as I feel those are worse than downloading the ROM, because the gaming mafia is profiting from that crime. You also need to hope that certain games still work, as some older games like Pokemon Yellow have an internal battery that runs dry with time, and might need to be replaced. So you'll need to find one of those, and a certain screwdriver, and then open up the cartridge and discover it's a fake, and then replace the battery, and hope you didn't break it in the process.
This is stressing me out, man.
There was a way to legally obtain not all, but at least a lot of his older titles through Nintendo's Virtual Console program. But since they shut down all their older stores, there is currently no way of purchasing them. It might change in the future, but at the moment, it is almost impossible for me to obtain it legally in my current situation.
Piracy is illegal, so I guess I should give up on it. Nothing good has ever come from it anyways, right?
Piracy has a good side, and although it's not completely in the right, it sometimes lies in a moral grey area. When it comes to games that are new and easily obtainable, especially indie games, I feel that the right thing to do is to support those games and their developers. If you like the game, it deserves your money, in order to help the developers create more of the things you might love, or even improve on the thing that you are enjoying. If we never support smaller developers, we would end up only getting games from Blizzard and Ubisoft.
And no one wants that to happen.
On the other hand, once you have purchased the game, I feel you should be able to enjoy it however you want, as long as you don't sell or financially benefit from the actions. Whether it be emulating the software on stronger hardware, or even modding the game for your enjoyment, you can at least sleep at night knowing that you're not responsible for a game developer going to bed without a stack of money under their pillow. When a game is unobtainable and the developer can't benefit from the situation, then I feel it opens up certain doors as long as you walk through them responsibly.
Like Spider-Man. The Tobey Maguire one.
Another positive of piracy is that it helps preserve countless pieces of media that would have been lost otherwise through time. Sometimes consoles get old and physical media fades, making certain games unplayable, even with an original copy and hardware. Sometimes a studio closes down and all of its games get lost alongside it. Sometimes developers stop supporting a game and delist it, and other times there's a fire. Through piracy, people have helped preserve countless pieces of media and share them with the world so that we don't have to give up a kidney when we want to play an older game. If you want to play something that is no longer obtainable, it will be available somewhere out there on the internet.
I usually just type ROM download at the end of the game's name and then go with what Google suggests. Thank you, Google.
Piracy and hacking also open up doors to multiplayer games that have had their servers shut down and extend their lifespan way past the date that publishers care to do so themselves. It has allowed many gamers and their friends to keep playing and enjoying the older games they love together.
And that is quite beautiful.
Piracy has also allowed for and brought over some experiences that are not available to all markets, like Mother 3, which has an okay fan translation and is the only real way the Western market can enjoy it at the moment, simply because it was never localized by the publishers. Some of the best games on the PSP were only released in Japan, and only through the hard work of fans and piracy can they now be enjoyed by non-Japanese speaking people. Sometimes, pirates can even fix problems with games that shouldn't be there, like slowdown due to unwanted anti-piracy software, which gives paying customers a worse experience, or even bugs that legit copies of games might experience due to it. A while ago, I purchased Fallout 3 on the Epic Store, and after downloading and installing the game, I got my boner under control and tried to launch the game, only for the launcher to close and nothing to happen. I uninstalled the legit copy I bought, downloaded the pirated version, and the game launched without hesitation.
And that's what it's all about. Convenience.
If I want to play a game, I will prefer using the easiest method of playing it, even if it costs more.
I usually just sell my kidney every time there's a Nintendo Direct.
If my only option to enjoy certain games is through ways that I'm not proud of, then so be it. As long as there's a convenient moral way to enjoy the things I want, I will always go for that experience. I want to play a legit copy of Pokemon on my console because it would be convenient. But if the developers don't allow me to do so in a reasonable way, well then it's hard to justify being against piracy as long as you use a condom and a VPN. Which brings us to the sponsor of today's video. At the end of the day, it is up to you to decide how far you are willing to bend the fibers of morality. All I can say is that if piracy did not exist, the gaming industry and the preservation thereof would all be worse off in the long run. If you're not hurting the developer, someone's not profiting from it, and you're not hosting illegal cockfight matches in your parents' basement, then why should you not be able to sleep comfortably at night after playing Dragon Ball Z Taiketsu for the Game Boy Advance on your phone?
Probably because it's a bad game. Oh, and it's illegal. But, at least you're not robbing a bank.